Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast. I'm Clark Coffey, and with me today is Cullen McFader, and we're on, episode 6. Amazing, where we discuss Herzog's Masterclass from masterclass.com, his lesson 7, which is all about locations. So, Cullen, thanks so much for being with me again today. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you, sir.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting lesson because... As we both know, it starts out with Aguirre, which is probably the most stark and striking opening of any of his movies.
Yeah, definitely one of the most memorable, huh?
And he's got the, that's when he has the people tied to trees because it was such a steep, cliff face that they were walking down and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when I remember when I first saw Aguirre and first saw this opening scene. I don't know about you, I have kind of a thing with heights. As in I'm scared to death of them, but only in specific situations. And it just so happens like being on the side of a mountain would be one of those situations.
Yeah.
Literally my palms and feet started to sweat when I saw this opening to this movie. It is so extraordinarily shot and does such a good job of showing the scale and the danger of this expedition and sets the scene so amazingly.
Yeah, and to think about carrying a camera up there too. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think my feet and palms are sweating now just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But definitely does a good job highlighting the importance of location. I mean, imagine that film having been opened with any other scene, and
or something that was fake, something that was shot on a set on a green screen or something like that, right?
Ooh, yes. Well, we definitely can get into that a bit more. Of course, Herzog's stance on that is that. One of his goals, as he sees as a filmmaker, is to have an audience believe their eyes. And I agree, it's vital. And in today's world of Marvel films, which, don't get me wrong, have their wonderful charms for sure, but so many films are so full of green screen and CGI now that you just don't believe anything. You literally don't believe anything that you're seeing on the screen. I think it takes a lot of the visceralness out of it. But yeah, so locations, important. I think, Herzog goes into a little bit of what he had to do to get that location. Months and months of, obviously he had to, first of all, travel to the Amazon to begin with. And then he had to spend months of his life in the Amazon, going up and down rivers and, hiking up hills and mountains and the jungle. And I probably a lot more than most people would do to find a location. Do you have any fun stories of what you've had to do to scout certain locations before?
I mean,
I'm trying to think of any I might have.
Scouting is always, I think it's both fun and hell depending on what the project is.
Yeah.
But I remember, one of my favorite locations I've ever shot was Iceland, which is,
Oh, wait.
intense.
Now you've shot in Iceland. Is that correct? Am I hearing this?
Yeah.
Oh,
not
yeah.
narrative. I shot documentary footage there, but yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, we're going to kind of jump back and forth here, kind of discussing what Herzog thinks about locations, but also sprinkling in some of our own experiences. So tell us a little bit about that, what the project was, how you found yourself in Iceland, and how that all kind of came together.
Honestly, it was a project that was born out of just the desire to go to Iceland, really.
Okay.
It was a friend of mine and I just wanted to go somewhere, and I thought,
So it's like one of those old Elvis films where they would like,
they want to go to Hawaii.
We want to go to Hawaii, so let's just put a film in Hawaii, and then we'll get to spend a few months in Hawaii.
Yeah, and so what I did actually, though, was so it was I say it was documentary, it was sort of half. The footage that I actually got there is still sort of in the cutting room on a project that I've been wanting to make for ages, which is an adaptation of The Old Man and the Sea. It's like kind of like a science fiction adaptation of that, which would be kind of a 30-minute-ish short film.
Okay.
And I wanted to start it out on a alien planet, and that alien planet was going to be Iceland because Iceland looks like another planet.
That's a good place to pick.
But I wound up getting so much footage there that I just turned some of that footage into kind of a visceral, auditory, sort of audiovisual experience, which was kind of fun. And that also was just a short film that I put up. But no, Iceland is a country where 10 minutes apart, it can go from sunny to snow to rain to, wind that is knocking you off your ass, and it's like I remember one of the days that we shot or we went was that we went to the famous Black Sand Beach, which is like this volcanic ash beach, and
Mm.
then the sky was overcast and the water was white, so you get this incredible contrast between these white foamy waves coming up on this jet black beach. And it was like, it's one of the most dangerous beaches in the world because the waves, it's the North Atlantic. People are not really aware of the fact that the waves can come in
Mm.
30 meters more than the last break
Than the
of
previous,
waves.
yeah.
And people have died. There's, I think,
Oh wow.
this might be a rumor, but I'm pretty sure there's an average of about one death per year on that beach, just from
Okay.
people not being aware of the fact that the waves come in. But I mean, there's points where you're like around a corner, kind of in a cave, and suddenly the waves will come in so far that you can no longer get out of the cave to go back
Mm.
around to where you get out. You kind of just have to wait for the waves to subside.
That sounds somewhat terrifying. So,
Yeah,
so
very
now were
cool
you
though.
kind of so you wanted to go to Iceland and you
Yeah.
thought to yourself, okay, how am I like what can I do since I want to go to Iceland? Then you put that in front and said, okay, what film can I make? Were you making kind of like a Lessons of Darkness type thing a little bit when you said it was kind of like was it kind of an abstraction of the landscape?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, the film that actually came out that I've made, the short film, was very much not planned in advance. It was
Okay.
something that, again, I just had the footage to do and I cut it
So
together.
maybe not the best example of what Herzog's talking
Yeah,
about,
perhaps not.
but that's okay. No, but that's okay because I think look, to just take a step back here for a second. I mean, a lot of us as filmmakers that don't have the same kind of access to money or as Herzog might, he even of course is challenged by that. But
Mhm.
oftentimes you have to shoot with what you've got. You have to shoot with what's available, and oftentimes the location can dictate kind of what you're able to shoot. So Herzog doesn't really talk about this so much in his lesson, but we can kind of speak to really utilizing the locations that you've got, and then somewhat writing the story around that to incorporate that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's definitely a valid way to do it.
And I think that it location is so intertwined with story, obviously intertwined with story,
There's
that
no question.
another example, like sort of just another quick anecdote, is the western that I made last year. Of course, when you're shooting something like that's period, you have to make sure that your locations are basically locked off from any semblance
Right.
of modernity.
Right.
So
Not going to
we
work if you've got a
we
highway in the background with semi
exactly.
trucks driving back and forth. Yeah.
And we got to there's a provincial park, maybe an hour and a half north of Toronto, called Forks of the Credit, and it is this beautiful, beautiful park. But it's one of those places that you can go and essentially set up a camera and turn it 360 degrees,
And
and
there's
you
nothing.
see nothing.
Ah,
And so it's like an hour hike through this forest, which we had to carry all the gear through, and
yeah.
get to this waterfall and all this stuff, and very, very fun, very tiring, but a lot of fun. But yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's like that location. Without that location, I don't think
Well,
anything would have felt the way that it did.
and that's an interesting little microcosm. I mean, certainly, you're not spending 3 months in the Amazon, but it was a challenge to get there.
Hmm.
I think I've worked on a lot of different types of projects. Some of those projects I was in control of, some I weren't, but I have definitely been a part of projects where the location was kind of an afterthought, right?
Hmm.
Where here's the script, this is what we're going to do. Okay, we've got our cast, da da da. All these things are kind of laid out, and then it's like, okay, where are we going to shoot this? And I've been even where the director wasn't even a part of the location scouting, or where it was really just very little thought was put into it, unfortunately. And they had done all this work in pre-production on so many other things, and we kind of get now we're down to a sliver of our schedule that's left for pre-production, and then now it's like, where are we going to shoot this thing?
Hmm.
And it's so it can so make or break your
Yeah,
film.
film can suffer for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, real, I think, a lot of people are like, obviously cast is vital, obviously the script is vital. And so much emphasis is put on those things, and rightfully so. They're important, but so many times I've seen where location is an afterthought, and whether it's an exterior or interior, I mean, you cannot overstate the importance, and especially as maybe a filmmaker who's just starting out, or a filmmaker who doesn't have a huge budget. One of the most opportunity to increase your production, your production design is to find an amazing location, whether it's an interior or exterior. But you could, oh my gosh, that can just blow up the size and scope of your film. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to there.
I mean, I think it's hilarious, because I'm sure that you agree that whenever I go to I went to some friends and I rented a cottage this summer to go up for my birthday up in cottage country north of Toronto. And this place that we rented, anytime I go into a new place, my immediate thought is like, how can I shoot here?
Yes.
And so and it was this beautiful, beautiful old dark wood kind of stone on the outside farmhouse. And I did, yeah.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that in the feature that I'm coming up on right now, that is one of the potential locations that we're like, let's see if we can rent that in the spring and shoot our movie there.
Absolutely. And so this is an important kind of just, a simple logistical thing. I mean, in your day-to-day life, always kind of be thinking, how might I use this location again at another time? Or what stories might even spring forth from this location? Sometimes the story can be inspired by the location that you've got available. So, but I'm curious too, I want to go back to the story where you said, you had to go hiking kind of out into the rural area a little bit to find a location for your Western. Because I think this is really important to Herzog's way of working. Tell me about, if or not, or how, if so, that trek out into the woods kind of flavored or had an impact on the actual shooting that you did there. Because I have a hunch that the investment that you had to make in getting all the way out there, and how that location kind of had its own vibe, or had its own kind of impact on your crew and cast. Did it? Tell me about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was funny because as we walked out there, we actually would stop occasionally and shoot some unplanned scenes that, there was a big montage sequence in it that of like a travel kind of sequence. And we would just kind of be walking to basically the end of this hike. There's a big waterfall that was the goal of where we were trying to get. And that was the point of it. But, occasionally we'd be like, that tree looks really cool. Let's, set up here for 10 minutes and get a shot of our lead actor walking around that tree or sleeping on it or something. And then
it inspired other shots, right?
Yeah, and it even got to a point where as we were walking there, we found a location for another scene that we didn't shoot that day because we needed our other actors there. But it was one of those things where we didn't know we were going to shoot that scene, and we saw this great lakeside location, and we went, that's perfect. Let's come back here in a few weeks with our other actors and shoot that scene there. But I think that it was a super, super small shoot. Like, it was literally me, another guy who was sort of the stand-in for the villain, because he was very, very much off screen. Like, it was basically just an over the shoulder that we needed that villain for.
Yeah.
And then the lead actor, and that stand-in guy was also helping me with some gear and stuff like that, and some behind the scenes sound and things like that. Yeah, no, I think it was a lot of it. Really, I think, if anything, and it goes back to kind of like we mentioned before, that whole idea of green screen versus doing it for real, which I think, not only for the audience to believe in it, like, I kind of want to add something on to that point. I think it makes the actors almost believe in it more too. Like, if you're even down 100%. To if you have a special effect in something, there's a huge difference between acting opposite a puppet versus acting opposite a tennis ball on like a C-stand.
Well, it does something. Being in a location absolutely affects you.
Exactly.
The cast and crew. And I want to, and it's interesting. I want to tie this in a little bit to this walking thing. If you've not in this lesson, I don't think, but in other lessons. And in other interviews and discussions that Herzog had, he talks about the importance of walking as a mode of traveling.
Yes.
And I think this is an interesting time to bring this up. And in the Masterclass, now we've not talked a lot, or maybe at all, frankly, about the exercises that go along with the Masterclass videos. But I want to bring up one of them here because I think it's especially interesting. And it's changed, actually, since when the class was first put up, and now there is a there's an exercise that talks about walking. And in its original form, the exercise was to walk 100 miles in any direction.
Yeah.
And I think now it says something like just walk a little bit or walk,
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact
Some sort of
verbatim
insurance
verbiage, but
liability or
it's,
something.
right. They've taken the 100 miles out, and I have a hunch it's maybe because the legal team looked at it and was like, we might get some people, who get lost or get hurt, and then they come back and say, hey, but Masterclass, you told me to go walk 100 miles. So I have a hunch that maybe that's what happened. But when you and I took the class, when it was first uploaded, it was 100 miles. And I did that exercise, of course, not in one day, but over the course of, I think it took me 4 days or so. And actually did it near you, around Niagara and Toronto. And I just want to say, I mean, you talked about how just in this brief kind of hike that you took, where you kind of started to become one with your environment, you started to become aware of other opportunities for scenes and, other shots. And I just want to say in general, I really do agree with Herzog here. The importance of walking as a mode of travel to help you just heighten your senses, be more present, notice more around you. Take some walks around your neighborhood. And instead of driving, instead of, where you're preoccupied and you're just on your way somewhere and the journey's not important, make the journey the thing and go walk. Spend, days walking your neighborhood, and you'll start to see your environment in such a different way. You'll see things that you never noticed before, and you may really find some extraordinary locations to shoot.
Here's a question for you. Did you have any moments on your walk where you went, I could shoot a movie about that, or I could, like any story ideas pop in your head or location ideas for something? Yeah,
absolutely. It was so there was that, but it was also just, let me see it without trying to digress too much. I mean, it also, I think, is important for your state of mind as an artist or as a creator, not to get too highfalutin here, but there's something about kind of separating yourself from the day-to-day routine and the focus on getting stuff done and the focus of your goals and tasks and just the speed at which our life kind of is lived in today's day and age. There's something about pulling yourself out of that a bit and getting your feet on the ground and your head in the, and just being outside and the sun on your face and the wind at your back. Hopefully, maybe it's in your face. You're having to go against it, but either way,
who knows?
but to really like be connected and be present. And Herzog talks about that in this lesson. He says, look, when I was shooting at Gary, or maybe it was Fitzcarraldo, I think one of the two of those films, he's like, I went and I ate their food. I lived in their villages. He, in the same way that he's emphasized becoming one with your subject, and this is when we're talking about the Peregrine book, and it's also about becoming one with your location to extent, and allowing that to impact you in a poetic way, and to raise to heighten your senses. And I think that's what walking did for me. I felt like it heightened my senses. It slowed me down and made me more present. And absolutely, it's so more than just did I get some story ideas or did I find some locations. I just felt like it was generally healthy and inspirational as just an artist in general. It's like a meditation. And I've used meditations as preparations to kind of, whenever I go into an artistic endeavor, again, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path here, but what the heck, just real quick. It's like when I was primarily pursuing acting, when I was getting ready to, do some homework to work on a scene or work on whatever kind of story I was working on, I would take about 15 minutes to a half hour to separate myself from the day, to separate myself from my daily routines, my daily worries, and I would usually pick some kind of literature to meditate on. It was often the first letter of Rilke, or it was some Joseph Campbell. But I would use that to kind of separate myself from regular life And I feel like walking is a really great way to do that too. So
I mean,
now
I
I've
think. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and now I've kind of forgotten the original thread here.
Well,
No,
I think it's interesting that you mention the idea of like getting into your surroundings and stuff because again, just to kind of go back to when we were talking about that, even just the hike to the waterfall that I was mentioning,
yeah,
that the lead actor, he got like sweaty and got, it actually felt like he had gone on this
right.
this long journey to his family's farm, which was the idea of the scene, but
And
it
which
was
is
really
it's kind of a microcosm a little bit of like, let's look at a Gary or Fitzcarraldo again, both of those films. I mean, you have a cast and a crew who are actually going on a real journey, and they're
yeah.
actually really doing the things that the film is about. Not that that always has to be the case, but I think that there is a correlation there. There is, you know, it's like you were saying, to actually get out there in nature, to take this walk, to do this thing, and to pull yourself into sort of kind of another world probably really helped your
Yeah.
actor, not just in the physical aesthetics that you described, but probably in the mindset as well, I'm going to guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's also, again, I think it's also one of those things where there's almost this like switch of psychology that happens where people often think like, oh, people are going to be pissed off if it's the weather's bad or if we have to be out in location. I find that people
Ah.
usually are happier to be out on location. Like
Yeah.
people really, at least in my experience, have really enjoyed shooting. Like even if it's in the winter. I mean, I've this is not a movie I made, but I did shoot. We had a really bad winter here 2 years ago. We've had a bad couple of winters, but
I thought you
it
guys
was.
always had bad winters. Or
I mean,
maybe that's just
it's been
compared to Southern
relatively
California.
mild sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was colder here than the surface of Mars.
What?
2 years ago, I think.
Do
And
you have a Fahrenheit and a Fahrenheit number for us?
I mean, at that
Americans?
temperature, I think Fahrenheit and Celsius are pretty much the same. It was like negative 45 degrees Celsius,
Oh my gosh,
which Fahrenheit
that's
I could do
crazy.
but no, and it was it was colder than
Ridiculously
negative
cold,
49
Oh
Fahrenheit. Yeah,
yeah.
colder than the temperature of the surface of Mars. And like so cold that the cameras weren't working. Like we would turn on a camera and it would
Ah,
work for maybe 2 minutes and stop working. But
was
there was
this
also
was this
like
a red? Was this a red or a black
no, this
match?
was a FS. This wasn't my camera. This was a FS or FX 7, I think.
Okay.
Sony FX 7, and again, but it was like there was honestly there was kind of an element of charm of just
Hmm.
like feeling like this is filmmaking. Like we're out here making a movie in the winter, and this is kind of what we get. And nobody was in bad spirits. Nobody was in a grumpy mood or anything. Everyone was kind of like, yeah, you know what this is. And I think it similarly with the group that you and I met through. How many times did we sort of half jokingly but also half seriously say like, hey, if we got a spot to shoot a movie in Antarctica, I'd be on that plane in an instant. Like
Yeah,
it was one of those things too where it's like it'll be difficult and it'll be cold and it'll be hellish
and I
weather
think that's
conditions,
part of it, right?
but I
That
think there's that kind of warlike attitude where you're like, let's go through the
it's a journey.
trenches. And
It's an adventure, and
yeah.
and I agree. I mean, I think it certainly is a good way to separate the people who are truly invested in your project and those who aren't. If you do have somebody who's completely unwilling to go on that adventure and go on that journey within reason, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I just
Hmm.
want to take a step back and say, you should be providing some necessities to your casting
Oh,
crew,
of
and
course. Yeah.
I mean, within reason. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that draws most of us to filmmaking is that it is an adventure. It's a collaborative adventure. It's a journey, and it's often one that does involve quite a bit of struggle and challenge. But it's also one that involves a lot of finding yourself and coming to understand yourself and other people better through these challenges and overcoming them. So, or enduring them sometimes. Maybe you don't always overcome them, but just enduring them alone
Hmm.
is. So yeah, I think that location is a big part of that. And again, it's can you imagine a Gary if they would have filmed that in a studio pool, or Fitzcarraldo if they would have filmed that with miniatures. I mean, it's laughable because it's just so integral to the film.
Yeah, it makes such a huge difference. I mean, even just I mean, look at any you look at any movie, and of course, like I mention this a lot because they're movies that I grew up with at least. But like Lord of the Rings is a movie that's filled with special effects.
Oh God, yeah,
Um,
it's
but
like three
uh,
quarters of those films are
but at the
CGI.
same time, you look at the locations that they went to for like they built the Shire. They went and built
That's true.
a castle on the top of a mountain, and then you look at the difference between those movies and how real and authentic those movies do feel in a lot of those moments where they are legitimately on location
Yeah,
versus something like The Hobbit, which again, same director, same franchise,
yeah,
but 99% of The Hobbit was shot on green screen, whereas very, very little of the live action stuff in Lord of the Rings was shot on green screen. Most of the
yeah.
special effects in Lord of the Rings are just miniatures that would have been otherwise impossible to shoot realistically.
And I do feel like the weakest parts of the Lord of the Rings trilogies are those just full blown CGI
Yeah,
sequences.
yeah.
Frankly, I feel that is the weakest. I mean, and location is a vital aspect of having a real location, grounding people to being able to believe their own eyes in a film. And I mean,
Hmm.
I just want to use this as an opportunity to throw in one of my favorite films of all time. It's not a Herzog film, but but the Mad Max films.
Hmm.
And I'm just
Even
going
the
to try to
newest
find a
one.
way. I'm just going to try to find a way to like bring in George Miller and Mad Max
No,
films.
everywhere.
Even though
Yeah.
they're everywhere. But I mean, I do want to say, I mean, look, especially I'll use the Road Warrior as an example. That last 30 minutes of that film where you've got this 30-minute long car chase basically is 100% real. It's
Hmm.
real stuntmen and women at speed in real cars on a real road in the middle of the actual Australian desert outback, performing these stunts, and it's still one of the greatest 30 minutes of kinetic filmmaking that I've ever seen. And the reason being, it's real,
And you
and
look
you
at the
can
newest
see
one
it.
too, though. Like even Fury Road, so much of that movie was real,
Yes,
and
absolutely,
they
absolutely. I don't
pulled
mean to
those
take
stunts
away.
off.
Yeah, and that film as well, although they did utilize CGI there
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
to manipulate backgrounds and things like
And those big
that.
dust storms and things like that. Yeah.
Exactly, but
But
you're
the
right.
reason I wanted to mention that was just because I think it's so integral to kind of talk about the fact that it still can be done. That you don't like. I think
It's
a lot of people
yes,
just think that okay, CGI is the way you do it these days. But even a movie that I'm not even that big of a fan of, but Interstellar, the Nolan one from
right.
2014, a lot of that
Matthew
movie,
McConaughey. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
like they went out to glaciers. They even the miniature effects are like they used projectors instead of green screens to project
Yeah,
stars on the outside of like spaceship windows and things like that.
it
Which
can be
again,
done. Yeah,
not the
yeah.
hugest fan of that movie, but I think that the special effects and things like that, and the way that they went and used locations and real, visceral kind of things that you can feel and you can touch. I think that's the important thing. I don't think CG is ever going to get to a point that will be able to perfectly replicate that because, simply put, I think that there's just a difference on set that
Exactly.
people who are making the
Even
movie
even
know.
when CGI gets to the place where it can perfectly, perfectly emulate reality, it will not have done that for a cast and crew,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that's that's really vital. So, I mean, let's see. What else do I want to talk about? So we've talked about the importance of location, and I think we've made it pretty clear. We agree with Herzog. Locations are vital. It's an amazing opportunity for you as a filmmaker to increase your production value,
Hmm.
to connect your audience viscerally, to have them believing their own eyes when they watch your film. You know, but let's talk about, okay, well, like, how do you get these locations then, right? I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so yes, locations are important. Sure, we all agree. How do we get these locations? And Herzog,
And you won't get them all.
and you certainly won't get them all, but of course, it wouldn't be Herzog if this weren't the case. I love, on the one hand, he says, "Hey, you've got to be respectful of permits and respectful, act with honor with the people that you meet and come in contact with. He has several examples of, giving his word when he said he wouldn't use footage. I think it was in North Korea.
Yes. Yeah.
Of because couldn't see the faces of these soldiers. But then, of course, in the previous breath, he talked about forging permit documents, and even forging, the Peruvian president's signature on a
on a military kind of pass
right,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, on a with a permit for a location there. And so I love how he does that. I mean, it's one of the things that's so endearing to me about Herzog is that he is like the antithesis of dogmatic. I mean, it seems like he's just, look, situation to situation. You've got to, think about what, each of these situations, and some of them may call for forging documents, and some of them may call for being completely honest and honorable. It's just so interesting.
Do you have any experience? I've a somewhat experience that is sort of similar. Maybe it was a little bit of my Herzog
let's hear
coming
it.
out.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So again, for this Western, we've been looking for a few locations. So there's a law in Ontario that a farmer can't burn down a barn for some reason. Like if you want to rebuild your barn, you can't burn it down. I don't know why.
You have to tear it down. I guess maybe is it like an environmental...
maybe something like that. However, there's a caveat in that law that you are allowed to burn it down if it is for a movie. So there are a whole bunch of barns around Ontario, like farmers who are like, I just want to burn down my barns. They'll let you burn it down for free and shoot it.
Now, I have never heard anything like this before.
Yeah, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we did not wind up burning down a barn as much as we wanted to. However, we were looking at all these locations like old historic houses and again this provincial park near me. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to do the official thing where we were getting in touch with all these places and saying, hey, we want to shoot here. What's like the process of getting a permit and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times it was things where it's like, well, you need upwards of $1 million of insurance, blah, 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 stuff like that. And it's like, well, we are a tiny, it's like 4-person crew with a shoestring budget. We don't have that type of money. So we did eventually just kind of go, let's just bring our cameras. Let's just bring a lot of backpacks and go for a hike. And just every once in a while, we'll set up, set up shop. Now, the most, I would say, risky time we did that was same location, that provincial park, and it was one I mentioned earlier that we said let's come back here and shoot this location, that scene here at this lakeside thing. It was a really beautiful location. The issue with that part was that the initial place we were going to shoot that was less interesting was very close to my house, and it needed guns, fake guns, of course.
Right.
And so it was way less risky because we were right at our house.
Yeah.
So we said, how can we possibly shoot this and be careful and make sure that there's nothing going to be, no police are going to be called or the people aren't going to freak out and that we're not going to get arrested.
Because at least here in America, I don't know about Canada, but, cops could just, if they thought you had a gun, they might just shoot you.
Yeah,
instantly,
open fire.
Depending, yeah.
So what we did was we bought these pylons, like yellow construction pylons that say film on them, film shoot. And we put them all over the trail, like very near where we were shooting. But basically anywhere where you could see us, we had film shoot, film shoot, film shoot. And this was not official by any means. We didn't talk to the park guards or things like that, park troopers
Rangers,
and things.
Yeah.
We just put all this stuff up so that anyone walking by would hopefully see these things. We had people standing at both ends of the trail around where we were shooting, and we were just trying to make sure. And because at the end of the day, what we thought was, I'd rather, have a park ranger come up and say, hey, you can't shoot here, you got to leave, and because they saw the pylons, than somebody walk by without the pylons, see someone holding a gun and go, I'm calling the cops.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of a funny little thing where it was like, okay, we're going to be in and out in half an hour. We're going to get this scene done. Luckily, there was no dialogue. It was just 6 or 7 shots.
Yeah.
And, at all, I mean, that goes for another thing with location, period, though. I think that guns on set, be it guns on location, guns on set, I try to minimize that at all. Even if it is a situation where you have fully contacted the police and you've got all this safety, I think that it still is
extra precaution for sure. Absolutely.
But no, it was kind of, again, it was fun. luckily everything went smoothly and stuff like that. And but we had, that was the day that we had the most people on set, specifically because we were like, we want to lock this down. Of course, we can't actually prevent people from coming through the space, but we wanted people at both ends to just sort of say, hey, we're just doing a film shoot. There's people in costume down there, so don't worry about them if you see them.
Yeah, usually people are. I mean, you asked me if I had any stories. Gosh, living in LA and Southern California, I think it's there. There are greater requirements for permits. I think people, and I've even read. I don't know if this is 100% sure, but I've even read. I mean, if you're shooting in your own home, and you've got, X number of people or something like that, you still have to get a permit. I mean, obviously the city is extremely savvy. Nobody, it's very, not nobody, but it is more people are likely to demand compensation for locations because this is just, it's a center of this industry. And,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to put a camera on sticks and go out on a street and shoot. It's just not for very long. So you really do have to hone your shot stealing techniques. And boy, I mean, I've done it all, whether it's, like just rigging cars with cameras and driving down Hollywood Boulevard to get exterior shots without having to get out of the car, and, using smaller, quote unquote, less professional looking cameras because it draws less attention.
You could just play off as a tourist. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, matter of fact, I'm trying to think where I have in a production that I've been a major part of actually had permits, and it's far and few between, very far and few between. But, one of the benefits of living here, even though you're in LA, is that you're surrounded by so many different landscapes. I've shot in Death Valley, and we've just gone out to Death Valley and shot. You want to talk about an amazing location to shoot. We didn't get any permits. We just went out there. Now, one of the drawbacks of that, though, was that we didn't realize it was still going to be so hot, and I got heat stroke almost and was throwing up everywhere. It was about 120 degrees.
Yeah.
But so you've got to be careful. Do your research about your location. But yeah, I mean, I've shot in Griffith Park without permits, and just we got there at the crack of dawn. We shot at sunrise to get a little golden hour in, but to do it when we thought there'd be a lot less people, and that worked out. Yeah, one of the other tricks that I've used a lot, and boy, I hope this isn't going to give anything away here that's going to give me in trouble. But I have maybe heard of, I'll just say this, I've heard of other people doing this thing where they will rent a location on Airbnb and say that they're going to be on vacation,
give it away.
and then they actually shoot
a movie. Don't give it away, Clark. Don't give it away.
yeah. So I've heard of people doing that.
I would never.
And it's substantially cheaper. It's substantially cheaper than actually going to somebody and saying, "Hey, I want to shoot a film. Can you rent me your location for film shooting?" So, it's a line of, and it's a tough one because I really don't want to be dishonest to anyone.
I mean, I think it's the difference to me, and it's interesting that you mentioned at the beginning the Herzog versus, him talking to the North Korean guard versus him with the Peruvian army, it was Peru, and I think that the distinction there is like, what's worth the risk? What is worth the risk, but also where's the harm?
Well, and what
being
is
placed?
the risk? Like, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think there are, these things aren't ethically black and white. It's a gray area, and I think there is like there is bureaucracy, which is just basically red tape, right? Which is
the most annoying thing in the world.
You're not hurting, right? You're not hurting someone. You're not, you're violating a rule of bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
But you aren't putting anyone at risk. You aren't, taking away someone's livelihood. You're not hurting their property. You're not, so I think that's what I get a sense of, at least for myself. And it seems like this is what Herzog is saying. You don't ever want to put yourself in a place where you're damaging someone's property or damaging nature, even frankly.
Yeah.
Although, of course, I think that Herzog got some flack about destroying some of the Amazon there when he moved that ship over the hill, and that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, there is definitely breaking bureaucracy, breaking rules that are just kind of bureaucracy, and breaking rules that are actually putting people at risk, are hurting people, are, so each of us as filmmakers have to kind of thread that needle and walk that line, just as we do in life. But
Yeah. I've got a funny, maybe one final little personal anecdote too involved in this idea of like risk and
yeah.
this Herzog style of shooting, perhaps. And I hope that I don't get in trouble for it because I still technically work for this place. But
Yeah.
so it wasn't a movie that I was making. It's a friend of mine who I actually taught initially and has become sort of somewhat of a colleague kind of since I taught him. And he was doing this very, wild kind of fun, crazy movie that he's been making for the past year, feature. And one of the shots required him and his friend to be on the top of our former high school lighting fireworks.
Okay, that I get a sense of where this is going. Please continue.
He said, "I need someone to operate the camera here."
Wait, do we need a disclaimer? Do we need to be like,
don't do this. Don't
do this at home. Yeah,
our lawyers are telling us to say not to do this. So I wasn't actually on the roof with them though. I was just in the parking lot operating the camera. But the funny thing was that I actually had to be at this guy. I work at my former high school now. I do a lot of both like course content advisory for the film course and things like that, and guest artist work and some promotional work for them. I had to be there that day to work, and so I was there at like 6 a.m. as the sunrise, filming this kid and his friend on the roof lighting off fireworks.
Oh my.
And I was like terrified that there was going to be cops called because obviously it's kind of hard to discreetly light fireworks.
Yes, slightly.
And then so that happens. We all just struck everything instantly, drove away. We had this like meeting point set so we could get away. It was like a bank robbery.
Nice.
And then I went back to bed for like an hour, woke up and went to work at the exact place that I was, which is hilarious. But I mean, it does come into like you said, is anyone's livelihood at risk? There's the great story about William Friedkin on the French Connection talking to, I don't know who it was. I don't think it was the head of the MTA, but it was some sort of department head at the MTA, and he said, Friedkin goes up to him and says, "We want to do this chase scene on the subway where the car's chasing the subway, and we want to get it all as real as we can.
Yeah.
We want the car actually there,
Great
and the subway
scene, by
going."
the way.
And the MTA guy said, if I would love to let you do it, but I'd be fired. I would be fired, and I'd never be able to get another job in this industry in my life. And William Friedkin said, "Okay, I'll give you a selection of the profits of the movie if you let us do this.
I've not
so
heard
that if
this
you get
story.
fired, you can retire." And the guy was like, "Well, I don't know if it's going to be a good success, blah, blah, blah." And Friedkin convinced him eventually. So he did it. He let him do it. They did that amazing car chase under the subway and on the subway and all that.
Yeah.
And the guy got fired. Then he retired immediately because he made, the movie did well. And so he made this money and was
This
able
is
to
legit? This is a legitimate
I mean,
story?
I've never read a legitimate account of it, but it's a kind of, maybe it's
Urban
a wide
myth?
style, but I'm pretty sure it's actually true. I heard it at a screening of The French Connection.
Well, maybe if any
once.
of our listeners here, we can call out the cumulative mind here, here of our audience. And if anybody hears anything more about this, but it's a great story. And at Friedkin, I believe it. It could happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's, and it as with, I think one of the wonderful things about filmmaking in general is that it is like such a creative, it's just every single aspect of filmmaking is this gray problem-solving area.
Yeah. I describe it sometimes as you're building a sandcastle on a beach and the waves are coming in, and it's literally just using your hands to keep the rest of the sandcastle from falling
sometimes
over.
Frantically, right. Wow. Well, and it's interesting that you talked about, you felt like it was a heist, because I love it. It's, again, in wonderful Herzog style, he finishes this lesson with such a great, quote or statement. And he talks about, that it's like, what's the final rule? The final rule is get away with film, leave with film, do what you must, don't complain, buck up, get away with film. And I love this analogy that he makes that we're thieves, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Yeah.
that the loot that we're out to get is film. And you've got to go to these amazing places, right? I mean, that's where the treasure is hidden.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, right? It's not on the beaten path. It's not out in the open. It's not the thing that's been shot a million times before. You've got to go out there and find new visions to bring back to an
Yeah.
audience. You've got to
Yeah.
go find those treasures, and that we're like bank robbers, and what we do is hit and run. And I just, God, it's
It's a
just
great line. I mean, he could inspire anyone to go out and shoot right now. I think is
I, I'm
that.
telling you, like, I'm getting excited. I'm like, okay, God, you know, I've been with COVID and everything. I've been doing so much planning, writing, planning, pre-productions, and I've not gotten to get out and shoot in a
Hmm.
long time. And oh, I'm like, especially as I reiterate Herzog's words here. I feel like I'm getting
Get
inspired
that
already.
urge. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think that's, you know, that's a great way to look at it. And I think, it's like maybe we're a Robin Hood, you know, of where we're like stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, you know, but we're taking these visions, taking the, you know, being able to
But I mean,
steal
that's what I
these
love
treasures.
about that's what I like about film is that even when you are stealing, you're not actually taking anything, you're replicating.
Right?
And
Yeah.
it's the same. I mean, it's the same thing that classic thing of just like the trophy hunter versus the photographer. The
Yeah.
photographer just gets just as much more beautiful, in my opinion, of a result without
Yes.
the need to
Actually
take a life,
killing.
right?
Yes.
And I think that kind of can be said for all film is that like especially with things like that's why I love to. I know there's the half of me that, of course, is always whenever I'm seeing something amazing for the first time. If I'm in a mountain range, I love to take it in with my own eyes. But
Hmm.
I also do like to have a camera there with me because it is also just so much fun to just discover new ways to capture that and to
Yeah.
express it. And not to be one of those people that goes to a concert and holds their phone in front of their face the whole time.
Oh God, no!
Um,
Please don't be
like
that
that's the
person.
worst. But I think there's a happy middle ground of being able to take it in while you're there, but also be able to come out with something with it and
Well,
to be able to have
yeah,
that
I
footage and
I agree. For me, and it's a little bit off the path here, but for me, it's a compartmentalization, I guess, in a sense. And
hmm
I don't know how you think about this film as a whole. It's not a Herzog film. It got middling reviews, I think. But the what was now I can't remember the exact title, but it was the Walter Mitty movie.
oh, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, yeah,
Secret
the
Life
Ben
of Walter
Stiller.
Mitty, and that Ben Stiller. But there is a fun scene near the end with Sean Penn
Hmm.
where he is, you know, and this don't want to give away the film so much, but it's, you know, basically Stiller's character ends up after a very long journey on this hillside, this mountainside with Sean Penn, and they have this conversation. Sean Penn plays a world renowned photographer in the film, and they have this conversation where Sean is like, you know, he's been searching for this moment for a very long period of time, and he's gone to great lengths to get this moment, and he lets it go. He doesn't take a picture of it because he just wants to be in the moment and doesn't want the camera as a distraction.
Hmm.
And I, for me, I've kind of compartmentalized where when I'm on a personal journey somewhere, or I'm there kind of like as a individual person, I tend to prefer to be present and to not have a camera with me or see what I'm seeing through that camera. But then I can like flip a switch and it's like, okay, now I'm like working or I'm
Hmm.
creating Clark and and then I get out the camera and I work. But for me, I see it as like I've had to kind of compartmentalize it for me. So I don't know.
Well,
Is
I
that
think,
it?
I mean, again, with this Iceland thing too, was like Iceland was half a vacation and half of a footage banking kind of experience that I could just get a bunch of
Yeah.
B-roll in Iceland. But there was never a moment where I felt that I missed out on something. And again, it was similarly, I was very careful to make sure that, if I was at a location, I was sitting there and enjoying it and looking at it. And then I'd go, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
set up my camera and I'm gonna capture
Maybe I'm
this.
just old.
And
Maybe I'm just old. I think social media has got me really burned out from that.
perhaps, yeah.
And maybe it's just a generational thing too. I think a Herzog, that he has talked about, and I can't place exactly where this was. If it was an interview, I don't think it was in one of the master classes. Maybe it was in an interview or a guide for the perplexed or something. I can't remember. Maybe somebody can call that out for me. Where he talks about that there are private moments and that you keep that to yourself, and that's like for your own life, and then there is film. And so that kind of spoke to me. But yeah, I think for myself, I had to kind of compartmentalize it and kind of separate myself. But sure, it's not like you turn off this. Like I'm always when I'm there seeing things. Okay, what stories could this maybe tell? Wow, this would what kind of what locate how could I use this location or something like that. But there's definitely moments where I'm like in this experience right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I don't want to pull out a camera.
No,
So
totally. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and maybe just before we wrap up, I
Yeah.
did find out that it is in fact true that they gave him a percentage of the
Wonderful.
budget, and he lived happily ever after in Jamaica, is
Well,
what director William Friedkin says.
well, I'll be damned. I mean, there's no better way to end the podcast than on that wonderful note. So there you go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cullen. As always, I've had a really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation here about locations and the Werner Herzog Masterclass. Lesson, what was this one? 7.
This was 7. Yeah.
Wow, it's just blowing my mind that we're done here with episode 6 of our podcast. This time flies when you're having fun. All right.
Exactly.
So next time, then, we will be discussing Herzog's Masterclass Lesson 8, which is leading the platoon. That's going to be a fun one. All right. Well, thank you so much, as always, Cullen. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We appreciate you. We hope that it's been fun and maybe even slightly informative. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful week and steal those shots.
And read.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.